Thank you, everyone, for joining today's Cabinet Outs. I'm pleased to welcome Premier Tim Houston, and we'll get started.
Should the public at all be concerned at the need to extend timelines for Inceptio and any other potential bidders to meet their financial obligations for offshore exploration?
I'm not. I don't think there's any reason for concern. It's all part of where we're coming from and where we're going to. I mean, we had an industry that was shut down in Canada for quite some time. So I think through this process, we've been trying to build confidence that we're serious about moving forward. So I'm not concerned. They're a good company with good people. They care about what happens out there. They're interested in the resources. Lots of people across the sector watching what happens there. I'm not concerned about it.
Inceptio must have asked for this, did they?
They just flagged that this was as we're going through regulations. Like there's some jurisdictions that don't require any deposit, right? The process of a deposit itself may be a relic of the past, to be honest. But we're still continuing on that process right now. When we expect that, and I'm not concerned about it. But we are looking at different regulations.
What reason did they give for wanting it?
They just said, like, they have an investor group, and people they basically wanted to see how we handled the process and whether we accepted the bids, and then they'll move on to the next step. So I'm not concerned about it.
Inceptio had an option to ask for an alternative where they would have had a smaller deposit, and the full deposit would have waited 3 years. Did you know anything about that?
It wasn't part of any discussions I was part of. But I'm excited about Inceptio. I'm excited about James Edens as a person. I'm excited about the potential of our offshore, and I think it's really good. Actually, we see Newfoundland pushing as well. It's good for the Atlantic region. So we have a credibility gap to fill with the industry worldwide in a very competitive world. But we have the resource, and we have the desire. So I'm not concerned at all.
Is the broader change a reflection of the fact that right now the majority of the interest you're getting is from smaller companies for whom raising that capital may be more of a challenge than the majors?
Are you speaking in the offshore or onshore or both?
Yeah, sorry. Well, both. Sure. Yeah, both.
Yeah, I think the industry has a cycle for sure. You have more of the exploration companies, wildcatters they would call them on onshore, on land. But yeah, there's definitely a cycle through it. But I'm actually excited about where we're at in the cycle. It's the best days are ahead.
This is the first cabinet meeting since you called the by-election. I just want to give you an opportunity. What's your elevator pitch? What's the pitch to voters in Shetland?
It's a great province. We're on a good path. It's a challenging world right now. It's a lot of anxiety in the world right now, but there's reason to be optimistic about the future of the province, and we just need to continue on with that path.
And how is the by-election going from what you hear?
That's one weekend. We have a great candidate. He's working hard. I'm certainly. We always look just to work harder. So we'll just work harder. I've been up there on a few doors myself, talking to people, and I think I'm feeling confident about. But that just makes me work a little harder.
You've won every by-election since you became leader.
Have we?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
You've never mentioned that to us before.
Please use that as your headline. How about that?
I wanted to ask about the decision last week in New Brunswick to approve the Tantramar gas plant. We know that last summer your government approved a $170 million U.S. loan guarantee for the IESO. Can you be a bit more specific about what that loan guarantee covers?
Yeah, sure. I think what's happening with the system operator, they have a great team there, Johnny and his team, and they're just looking at what's the generation capacity, what's the need, are all the gaps filled, and they're just trying to be proactive. We just came through a winter where we had some of the even the cold snaps. There was the threat of rolling brownouts in Canada. in 2026, right? That's a scary thing. So I think they're looking at what are the needs and how do we make sure that we have the capacity there. So the peaker plants in Pictou County, trying to make sure that the need is there. Looking at neighboring provinces, and there is a discussion taking place on a regional systems operator, so we can share more freely, which I think would be incredible for ratepayers to make sure we're always calling on, the most cost effective but the most reliable source of energy too. So I think that's the arrangement there is part of just making sure we can fill those gaps. So it's making sure that the capacity, the financial capacity is there to buy that energy should they need it.
So the loan guarantee is for a loan to the IESO. What is the loan for? Is it to pay for part of the construction costs of the plant in Tantrum?
No, my understanding, and we get the energy minister to fill you in a little more, but my understanding is that is the financial backing. So when somebody's building a plant, they have their own financial and banking requirements that they'll be able to sell their product, that their business case works. I think this is Nova Scotia saying we would be interested in buying that product, and it's actually putting the financial capacity behind the systems operator to say, yeah, we will buy 100 megawatts when necessary.
Premier, this week is National Accessibility Week, which has prompted some Nova Scotians to speak out about the lack of accessibility in their neighborhoods, specifically on new builds. One of those Nova Scotians is George Mora, who has mobility issues, but says new strip malls in his neighborhood in Larry Utek specifically are not accessible. What is your reaction to this, and how is your government prioritizing accessibility in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, so I think all Nova Scotians are focused on accessible communities, accessible buildings, just making sure everybody can enjoy the same quality of life and move freely in an accessible fashion. So I think that's the goal of every Nova Scotian. So there are building codes that speak to that. There are goals. So those constructions would be to the building codes. I'm not familiar with a specific case you're talking about, but it's certainly the goal that it's a more accessible province.
Tweet you put out, I think you mentioned the different things your government has done since coming into the office in terms of accessibility. I'm curious, you said more work is needed. What is the next step for your government in terms of improving this for Nova Scotians?
Well, I think you mentioned an individual who has concerns. So I think listening to the concerns of the community and where we can do a little better, working with, looking at building codes, looking at opportunities. So I think that's there will always be a desire to do more. So we'll continue to work with the community.
We're open to those discussions then.
Yes.
Yeah.
With this mining roundtable, why feel the need to call this? Is this a signal that you're disappointed with the level of investment as to where we stand today?
Oh, no, this is it would be the opposite, really. I mean, the roundtables, I've had a health roundtable it's been meeting regularly for a few years now. I've had a natural resource roundtable. I think it's just listening to the sector, of what some of the things that they're seeing, and then we can take that and kind of work with community, work with Nova Scotians. But it's just discussion. It's a good thing.
Your government has made a number of changes in the last couple of years, I guess, to address concerns about too much red tape and overly bureaucratic processes for people who want to do that work here. Are you hearing further concerns from them, even with the work you've done so far, or is this more, as you say, kind of the ability to have a general check-in with people?
In general, there's never a shortage of complaints people have with the government in general, but in this particular case, no, I'm not hearing that. I think the roundtable would just be an ongoing, regular check-in. More so too, so that the province can understand what people are looking at as opportunities as well. So we have some visibility in that to what people are thinking. But I'm not hearing anything out of the ordinary in the realm of complaints.
Are you hearing then that there's anything that's holding up greater or further investment? I mean,
I can't think of a specific example offhand. I know that. We've advanced 4 projects, I think, in the past year. I think that momentum is actually gaining interest. But as a province too, we're making investments through Dalhousie to understand the potential for the resources in the province with aerial seismic, with digital records of core samples that we have already. The province has every core sample that's been drilled here for the most part. They're all in a warehouse in Pictou County actually, and people can go crawl through that and find them. But we're trying to digitalize them so people can see an inventory. So we're trying to understand the resource potential here. At the same time, the government is trying to understand that. Industry is usually a few steps ahead. So so we just want to make sure we're talking and have some clarity.
Since you mentioned criticisms of the government,
Nice segue.
you opened the door. You opened the door for them. Since the announcement down in the valley recently about the libraries that are going to close, one criticism that I have heard is the government has enough money to add cabinet ministers to cabinet, but not enough to meet the needs of libraries so that they can stay open. What would you say to that?
I've heard that from CUPE on the line too. What I said there was, we're talking about $200,000. Every department's budget is probably $1 billion. I mean, so having somebody at the helm of that, I think, makes sense in the issues and opportunities we face as a province. But for order of magnitude, that $200,000 compares to $100 million in the labor negotiations, or millions and other things. So I think having the proper focus and direct insight into the department just makes sense at this point in time. But the library situation, I think we all value our libraries. They're important to rural communities. They're important to all Nova Scotians. There's lots of positives that our libraries contribute to our society. So we have great respect for our library network, which is actually why, in a time when we went through a very difficult budget, I don't know if you folks noticed, but it was kind of a difficult budget. We maintained library funding. Like, there was no cuts to library funding. We held the line on library funding, and in fact, since the budget, a little bit of extra money actually went to libraries on top of that. So we're supporters of libraries and believers in libraries, and we have some questions. Certainly, I've been talking a lot to the local MLAs who have questions about some of the decisions that were made by that particular board. It was a board decision, not a government decision. But I think it's there's always decisions to be made and debated. Well, how can you add a cabinet minister when you won't settle a labor dispute? How can why would you talk about developing our natural resources when I still don't have a doctor? Like, all these things, but they all have to. They're all. I think you need to have perspective when you think about them. So the library funding, I think it's. We have questions out to the board. We'll try to work with the board. We have in the past when they've asked for, special bridge funding. We've delivered for them. They didn't ask for that this year that I'm aware of. But we've maintained the line. But we have some questions. We'll try to work with them because we know they're important to communities.
Would you say that within your government, there's a recognition that libraries, especially since COVID, appear to be providing a lot more community services beyond just what people would traditionally expect a library to do?
Yeah, I think there's... Yes, and there's opportunity for other areas too. I mean, some people, virtual care is part of the delivery of healthcare in this province right now, but maybe you don't have a computer, maybe you can go to the library. I mean, we can set up. So there's opportunities to work together. I think that's part of the reach out with this board in particular, but libraries in general. But they're important parts of our community, and nobody likes to see libraries close. So that's a difficult one for Nova Scotians, but we'll do what we can, but we have constraints as well.
Do you foresee increasing funding in order to keep those branches open?
Well, in the past, when we've been asked for bridge funding, we have delivered on that. In this particular case, I believe the board itself has a rainy day fund that's measured in the millions of dollars. So I think we want to try to work with them to say, if you have a rainy day fund and it's raining outside, maybe it's the time to consider using that fund. So these are the types of discussions we're having with them. But we certainly, I wish we were at a point in our province where we could do every ask, like I do. I wish we could do more for everybody. I really do. But we have limitations. But almost back to where Brian started, we're trying to change that trajectory where we change our economy, where we do have more, where the pie gets bigger, where we can do bigger pieces for everyone. But we'll have a discussion with them and be frank with each other. But I think part of it might come from their own resources, but we're funding, I think it's 70% or just a little north of 70% of all these library operations. So I think we're there for them. And if we can be there a little more, and we can, we'll try to, but I don't know the answer until we have those discussions.
Last week, Premier, that the BC, in BC, they're trying to develop 2 gigawatts of offshore wind. And it made me wonder how our project was coming on. Have you, when you were Energy Minister, have you had any discussions with Major Projects Office about the transmission?
Oh yeah, that's an ongoing discussion. Even there's a reason is this week. That's an ongoing discussion. There's significant interest in the Wind West potential, positive interest nationally through that office, as high as the Prime Minister's office, and certainly internationally as well. It's an ongoing discussion. I'm very, very positive on that.
So you had that with VNPO on
the Major Projects Office. Oh yeah, it's a constant discussion.
That's all the time we have.
Thanks, sir.
One more libraries. I'm feeling generous.
Okay.
You got me in a good mood. You reminded me about the by-election. Yeah. You got me all cheered up on that. Thank you.
Make you happy.
Thank you for cheering me up.
So the libraries have, cut their operating funds, and they have said that they can't use that rainy day fund, as you've called it, for operating expenses. So they're saying their issue is with the provincial formula, and it hasn't been adjusted since 2020, 2021.
Okay.
Do you think the formula needs to be looked at? Does more sustainable funding?
The funding's been stable, so I don't know the ins and outs of the formula. I know they. I know they want a little more, but it's been stable, so that's the first point. It hasn't gone. It hasn't. We haven't cut anything there. Happy to look at the formula, and also happy to I think if an organization has. I don't know the proper name. I probably shouldn't have said rainy day fund, but it's a fund, that they would use for emergencies, presumably. And maybe there's a discussion too about the restrictions on that and when that can be used and when that can't be used. But these are just, I think the local MLAs and I know certainly Minister Lohr has kind of written or reached out to them to have a discussion. But we understand the importance of the libraries, but we also, we also understand the financial position of the province and the obligation we have to taxpayers in general. So, all right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, sir.